Tae-ho Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked across the empty airfield. The hot summer sun beat down on the cracked concrete runway. Weeds grew through the gaps where planes used to land. This place had been empty for 20 years. He carried a small bag with his life savings, $300. Not much for a man who used to design spacecraft engines. The Seoul Aerospace Consortium had fired him 6 months ago. Budget cuts, they said. Now he picked through scrap metal to survive. The government auction was almost over. Old military equipment sat in rusty piles. Most bidders had already left with their purchases. Tae-ho had bought some copper wire and aluminum sheets. Nothing exciting, but he could sell them for enough to eat this week. The auctioneer, an old man with a loud voice, pointed to a massive hangar at the far end of the field. Lot 847, he called out. Building 16, concrete and steel construction. Buyer must remove within 30 days. Tae-ho looked at the hangar. It was huge, maybe 200 feet long and 100 feet wide. The roof had holes where metal sheets had blown away. Rust covered most of the walls, but something about it caught his attention. The back wall looked different. While the rest of the building was gray concrete, that wall had a metallic shine. Even from far away, it seemed to shimmer in the sunlight like water. "Do I hear $50?" the auctioneer asked. Nobody raised their hand. The few remaining bidders weren't interested in a broken building they would have to tear down. $20? Still nothing. The auctioneer looked annoyed. $10? $5? Come on, people, this is prime scrap metal. Tae-ho almost laughed. Prime scrap metal that would cost thousands to remove. No wonder nobody wanted it. $1? Silence. 60 cents. Final offer before I move on. Tae-ho raised his hand without thinking. Maybe he could salvage some metal from it. At worst, he would lose 60 cents. Sold to the gentleman in the blue shirt, the auctioneer said. See me after for paperwork. An hour later, Tae-ho stood in front of his hangar holding the deed. He owned a building bigger than most houses for the price of a candy bar. His friends would think he was crazy. He walked around the outside first. Most of the structure was falling apart. The main doors were stuck open, hanging crooked on broken hinges. Inside, old stains marked the floor where oil had leaked from aircraft. But that back wall was strange. Up close, it definitely wasn't concrete. The surface was smooth and metallic, with patterns that were hard to see unless you looked carefully. Geometric shapes connected in ways that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. Tae-ho pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The light reflected off the wall in odd ways. Some parts seemed to glow softly, others stayed dark. He had worked with many types of metal in his engineering career. This wasn't like anything he knew. He touched the wall. It felt warm, even though the rest of the hangar was cool. The patterns seemed to shift slightly under his palm, like they were alive. Interesting place you bought. Tae-ho jumped and spun around. A woman stood in the doorway. She looked about 40, with short black hair and glasses. She wore a simple dress and carried a notebook. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," she said. "I'm So-Jin Park. I work at the local history museum. I heard someone finally bought this place." "Tae-ho Kim," he replied, "though I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake." So-Jin walked closer but stopped several feet from the back wall. "My grandfather used to work here when it was an active base. He told me stories about this hangar." "What kind of stories?" "Pilots refused to park their planes here after 1987. Said their instruments went crazy near this building. Compasses spun in circles. Radio signals turned to static. Even electronic watches stopped working." Tae-ho looked at his phone. The screen flickered slightly. "Did anyone ever investigate?" The base commander tried. Brought in some scientists from Seoul. They took measurements and samples, but their equipment kept breaking down. After a while, they just declared the hangar off limits and built new ones. So they just left it empty? For 30 years? Until the base closed and the government decided to sell everything. So-Jin moved closer to Tae-ho but stayed away from the wall. "Local people have theories. Some say it's cursed. Others think there's some kind of underground power line causing interference." Tae-ho looked at the patterns on the wall again. "They seemed more complex now, like a puzzle he was starting to understand. "What do you think?" So-jin was quiet for a moment. "I think my grandfather was a practical man who didn't scare easily. If he said this place was strange, it was strange." She handed Taeho a business card. "If you find anything interesting, call me. I document unusual local history. This place has been a mystery for too long." After So-jin left, Taeho stayed in the hangar until sunset. He walked around the wall several times, studying the patterns. They definitely weren't random. Someone had designed them with purpose. He pulled a small metal detector from his bag. It was old and cheap, but it worked well enough for finding scrap metal. When he turned it on near the wall, it went crazy. The machine beeped so fast it sounded like one long tone. Taeho moved the detector along the wall's surface. The signal stayed strong everywhere he tested. Either there was a massive amount of metal behind the wall, or the wall itself was made of something his detector couldn't identify. As darkness fell, he noticed something new. The patterns on the wall glowed faintly in the dark. Not bright enough to light the hangar, but visible if he looked carefully. The glow pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Standing alone in the empty building, Taeho felt like he was being watched. Not by a person, but by the wall itself. The feeling was so strong he turned around several times to check if someone had entered. He decided to come back tomorrow with better equipment. His engineering training told him there was a logical explanation for everything he had seen. But another part of his mind whispered that he had stumbled onto something much bigger than a broken hangar. As he locked the main doors and walked to his car, Taeho couldn't shake the feeling that his 60-cent purchase was about to change his life forever. Taeho returned to the hangar the next morning with a toolbox and borrowed equipment. He had called his old friend Dongwoo Lee, who worked at Seoul National University. Dongwoo studied ancient artifacts and had access to better testing tools. "Your uncle bought this place for 60 cents? Dongwoo asked, setting down his heavy case of instruments. He was a thin man with thick glasses who got excited about puzzles. "I know it sounds crazy," Taeho said. "But look at this wall." Dongwoo approached the metallic surface and stopped. His jaw dropped. "This isn't normal construction material." "That's what I thought." "Can your equipment tell us what it's made of?" Dongwoo pulled out a small device that could identify different metals. When he pointed it at the wall, the screen showed nothing but error messages. "That's impossible. This scanner works on everything from iron to gold." "Try this," Taeho said, showing him how the patterns seemed to shift in the light. Dongwoo stared at the wall for several minutes. "These aren't random decorations. They form a mathematical sequence, like a code." "A code for what?" "I don't know yet. But look here." Dongwoo traced one of the lines with his finger. "This pattern repeats every 17 centimeters, and these connecting shapes follow the Fibonacci sequence." Taeho had studied mathematics in engineering school. The Fibonacci sequence appeared in nature everywhere, from flower petals to galaxy spirals, but he had never seen it used in building construction. "There's something else," Dongwoo said. "Feel how warm this wall is." Taeho placed his palm against the metal. It was definitely warmer than the air temperature. "Underground heating?" "In an abandoned military hangar? I don't think so." Dongwoo pulled out a thermal camera. The screen showed the wall glowing bright yellow and red. "This whole surface is generating heat." "From what power source?" "That's what we need to find out." They spent the morning testing different sections of the wall. Every instrument they tried either malfunctioned or gave impossible readings. The metal was harder than steel but lighter than aluminum. It conducted electricity but also blocked it. According to their tests, it shouldn't exist. Taeho, Dongwoo said around noon, "I think this wall might be a door." "A door?" "It's solid metal. Look at the pattern again. These lines form the outline of a rectangle about 3 meters wide and 4 meters tall, exactly the right size for a large entrance." Taeho studied the wall more carefully. Once Dongwoo pointed it out, he could see it clearly. The geometric patterns formed a border around what could be a doorway, but there's no handle, no obvious way to open it. Maybe the patterns are the opening mechanism, Dongwu suggested. Like a combination lock. They tried pushing different parts of the pattern. They tried tracing the lines in various orders. Nothing happened for an hour. Then, Taeho placed both hands flat against the center of the outlined door area. The patterns around his hands began to glow brighter. The metal grew warmer under his palms. "It's responding to you," Dongwu whispered. Taeho pressed harder. The glow spread outward from his hands, following the geometric lines across the entire door section. A low humming sound came from somewhere inside the wall. With a soft hiss, the door section slid sideways into the wall. Cool air flowed out from the opening, carrying a strange metallic smell. Both men stepped back in shock. Where the solid wall had been, now there was a doorway leading into darkness. "How is that possible?" Taeho asked. Dongwu pulled out a flashlight, with shaking hands. "I don't know. But we need to see what's inside." The beam revealed a corridor that extended far beyond what should be possible. According to the hangar's outside dimensions, they should have hit the back wall after a few meters. Instead, the corridor continued into the distance. "This goes underground," Dongwu said. "Deep underground." They walked carefully down the corridor. The walls were made of the same strange metal, with patterns that glowed softly to provide light. The floor was smooth and clean, as if someone had maintained it recently. After about 50 meters, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. Taeho's flashlight beam couldn't reach the far walls, but in the center of the space, reflecting their light, was something that made both men forget to breathe. It was a spacecraft, not like any aircraft Taeho had ever seen. The shape was elegant and flowing, like it had grown rather than been built. It was about 30 meters long, with a hull that seemed to be made from the same material as the walls. But this ship had obvious damage. Scorch marks covered one side, and part of the wing structure was twisted. "That's not human technology," Dongwu said quietly. They approached the ship slowly. Up close, they could see that it had been designed for beings similar to humans, but different. The doorway was taller and narrower. Symbols covered the hull, in the same geometric style as the wall patterns. "Look," Taeho said, pointing to an opening in the ship's side. "We can get inside." The interior was even stranger than the outside. Everything was built for beings about 8 feet tall with longer arms than humans. Control panels curved in ways that seemed natural but alien. Screens showed symbols that moved and changed as they watched. In what looked like the pilot's seat, they found the remains of the ship's operator. The skeleton was clearly not human. The bones were longer and thinner. The skull was larger, with eye sockets positioned differently. It wore what might have been a uniform, made from material that hadn't decayed. "We need to document everything," Dongwu said. "This is the most important discovery in human history." They spent hours taking pictures and notes. Many of the ship's systems still seemed to be working. Lights glowed softly, and some screens showed moving displays they couldn't understand. "Look at this," Taeho said, pointing to a large screen near the pilot's seat. Symbols scrolled across it in organized patterns. "It looks like some kind of recording or message." "We need help translating this," Dongwu said. "I know someone at the university who specializes in unknown languages." As they prepared to leave, Taeho noticed something else. The ship's main screen was showing what looked like a star map. One particular star was highlighted and flashing. "Dongwu, does that star look familiar?" Dongwu studied the display. His face went pale. "If I'm reading this correctly, that's our solar system. And the highlighted planet." He paused. "That's Earth." They looked at each other in silence. A crashed alien spacecraft with Earth marked on its navigation system. The implications were staggering. "We need to understand what happened here," Taeho said, "and we need to understand it fast." As they walked back through the corridor, Taeho couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was just the beginning. Something had brought this ship to Earth. Something had caused it to crash and hide underground for decades. And if the star map was accurate, Earth wasn't just a random stop for this alien visitor. It was a destination. 3 days later, Tae-ho and Dong-woo returned to the underground chamber with Mi-young Choi. She was a language expert from Seoul National University who specialized in decoding unknown writing systems. When Dong-woo had told her about the symbols, she had dropped everything to come see them. "This is incredible," Mi-young said, staring at the alien ship. "The symbol structure is completely different from any human language, but it follows logical patterns." She set up her computer equipment near the ship's main control panel. For hours, she studied the moving symbols on the screens, making notes and running analysis programs. "I think I'm starting to understand the basic grammar," she said. "These symbols represent concepts rather than sounds, like Chinese characters but much more complex." Tae-ho and Dong-woo watched as she worked. The ship seemed to respond to their presence. More screens had activated since their first visit, showing different displays of symbols and images. "Look at this," Mi-young said, pointing to one screen. "This appears to be a personal log. The same symbol group keeps repeating, probably the pilot's name. Can you translate any of it?" "Bits and pieces. I see symbols for journey, danger, and warning, and this symbol here appears in every entry." She pointed to a complex pattern that looked like two circles connected by jagged lines. "I think it represents another species or group." As if responding to her words, the main screen suddenly changed. New symbols appeared, larger and brighter than before. The ship's lights grew stronger, and a low, harmonic sound filled the chamber. "What's happening?" Tae-ho asked. The screen showed what looked like a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars were represented as points of light, but many of them were colored red, and the red areas were spreading across the map like an infection. "It's showing us something," Mi-young said. "A historical record, maybe." The map zoomed in on different star systems. Each one showed the same pattern: a peaceful blue planet turning red after contact with something else. The red areas always originated from the same direction in the galaxy. "It's like watching a conquest," Dong-woo said. "Someone or something is taking over planet after planet." The display changed again. Now it showed individual planets in detail. Beautiful worlds with blue oceans and green continents, populated by different alien species. Then came images of massive black ships arriving in space. The planet's surfaces turned red, their cities burning. "These are warning records," Mi-young realized. The pilot was documenting an invasion. The screen focused on one particular planet. It was clearly Earth, showing the familiar shapes of continents and oceans. But this Earth was marked with symbols that Mi-young now recognized as urgent warnings. "The pilot came here to warn us," she said. "Earth is a target." Suddenly, a new voice filled the chamber. It was speaking the alien language, but somehow Tae-ho could understand parts of it. The words appeared in his mind rather than his ears. "Greetings, humans. I am Kale, scout of Valari people. If you understand this, time is short." The three humans looked at each other in amazement. The ship's artificial intelligence was trying to communicate with them. "We understand," Tae-ho said aloud. "We want to learn." The voice continued, clearer now. "My people, Valari, peaceful explorers. We discovered great threat, Throkian dominion. They conquer all worlds, enslave all species." Images appeared on the screen showing the Throkians. They were tall, insect-like beings with dark armor and powerful weapons. Their ships were massive and heavily armed. The Throkians, they find worlds by detecting radio signals, electromagnetic emissions. Your Earth broadcasts have been detected. Tae-ho's heart sank. Humanity had been broadcasting radio and television signals for over a century. If hostile aliens were tracking those signals, Earth had been advertising its location for decades. "How long do we have?" Mi-young asked. The screen showed a timer with alien numbers. The AI's voice became more urgent. 18 of your months, maybe less. Throkian advanced scouts already in your solar system, studying your defenses." "What can we do?" Dong-woo asked. "My ship contains Valari technology, defensive systems, tactical information, but," the voice paused, "Throkians always win, because species fight each other, not the invasion." You must unite, all humans, or you will fall like the others. The screen showed examples from other worlds. Planet after planet had fallen because their inhabitants were too busy fighting each other to prepare for the real threat. Civil wars, territorial disputes, and resource conflicts had made them easy targets. Your species shows promise, creativity, unpredictability. These are strengths against Throkian tactics, but only if you work together. How do we convince our governments? Tejo asked. They'll think we're crazy. Evidence, in ship computers, star charts, Throkian technology analysis, weapon specifications you must share with all human leaders. No single nation can survive alone. The AI began downloading information to Mi Young's computer. Technical specifications, star maps, tactical analyses, and detailed recordings of Throkian invasion methods. The data was overwhelming. There is more, the AI continued. Valari technology, compatible with human neural patterns. Your minds adapt quickly. This surprises us. Other species take generations to learn. Humans learn in days. What does that mean? Mi Young asked. You can operate our defensive systems, modify them, improve them. Your chaotic thinking creates solutions we never considered. This is your advantage. The screen showed human brain patterns interacting with Valari technology. Somehow, human creativity and adaptability made them unusually effective with alien systems. Warning, the AI said suddenly. Throkian scouts. Monitoring your communications. They know about radio signals, but not about this base. You must be careful. Prepare in secret until ready. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. The weight of what they had learned was staggering. Humanity was facing extinction from an enemy they didn't know existed. But they also had access to advanced technology and 18 months to prepare. We need to make a plan, Tejo said. How do we unite the world without causing panic? Carefully, Mi Young replied. We need proof that no one can deny. And we need allies in every major government. The AI is right about one thing, Dongwu added. Humans are good at adapting. If we can learn to use this technology, we might have a chance. The ship's AI spoke once more. I will teach you what I can. My people died believing Earth could be saved. Prove them right. Show the galaxy that not all species bow to the Throkians. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Tejo looked back at the alien ship. A few days ago, his biggest worry was paying rent. Now he was part of humanity's first contact with alien civilization, and possibly the key to their survival. The next 18 months would determine whether humans joined the long list of conquered species, or became something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that fought back and won. 2 weeks after their discovery, Tejo's team had grown. They worked in secret, meeting in the underground chamber every day. Hyun-Sik Jang, a retired Korean military strategist, had joined them after Dongwu convinced him to see the alien ship. Yoon-Hae Yoon, a materials scientist, came when they needed help understanding Valari technology. This changes everything we know about physics, Yoon-Hae said, studying samples from the ship's hull. The metal repairs itself. It's stronger than steel but weighs less than plastic, and look at this. She showed them how a damaged piece of hull material was slowly growing back to its original shape. It's like living metal. The Valari built their technology to last forever. Hyun-Sik was focused on the tactical information. According to these records, the Throkians use the same invasion plan every time. They study the target planet for months, identify the strongest military forces, then attack those first. After that, the rest of the planet usually surrenders. But they've never faced humans before, Tejo said. We don't surrender easily. That's what worries me, Hyun-Sik replied. If we fight back harder than expected, they might decide to destroy Earth completely instead of conquering it. The AI had been teaching them to use Valari systems. What amazed everyone was how quickly humans adapted. Technologies that took the Valari years to master, humans learned in days. Your minds work differently, the AI explained during one session. Valari think in straight lines. Humans think in circles, spirals, random jumps. This makes you unpredictable. Throkians hate unpredictable. Mi Young had been working on a translation program. She could now communicate clearly with the AI and read most Volari texts. "I've found something important," she announced. "The Throkians have a weakness." She showed them records from past invasions. They rely on fear and overwhelming force. When a species fights back effectively, they get confused. They're used to easy victories. "How does that help us?" Yunhei asked. "It means we don't have to win a total victory. We just need to make conquest too expensive for them to continue." Taeho had been thinking about the bigger problem. "We have good information and some advanced technology, but we're just 5 people. How do we convince the entire world to work together?" They had debated this for days. Revealing the discovery to one government would give that nation an unfair advantage, but revealing it to everyone at once risked chaos and panic. "I have an idea," Yunsik said. "What if we don't reveal everything at first? We start small, with people we trust in different countries." "A gradual disclosure," Mi-young agreed. "Build a network of believers before going public." Over the next month, they carefully contacted scientists, military officers, and government officials in 12 different countries. They showed each person just enough evidence to convince them, then asked them to recruit others. The network grew slowly but steadily. A physicist in Germany, a general in Brazil, an aerospace engineer in Japan. Each person brought skills and resources the team needed. "It's working," Dongwu reported. "We now have allies on every continent. But they're all asking the same question. When do we tell everyone?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The AI detected new Throkian communications. Scout ships, sending reports. They know Earth is preparing. Decision time approaches. "What kind of preparations are they seeing?" Taeho asked. "Increased military activity, satellite launches, unusual energy signatures from research facilities. They suspect Earth knows about the invasion." Hyunsik looked grim. "If they think we're ready for them, they might attack early. Or they might attack with more force than planned," Yunhai added. The AI's voice carried what sounded like urgency. "Time for secrets is ending. Humans must choose. Unite openly or face invasion divided." That night, the team made their decision. They would reveal everything simultaneously to every major nation on Earth. No one would get an advantage, and no one could claim ignorance. They had prepared for this moment. Their network of allies had grown to include people in 60 countries, scientists, military leaders, and government officials who were ready to present the evidence to their leaders. "Are we sure about this?" Mi-young asked. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "The Throkians are coming whether we're ready or not," Taeho replied. "At least this gives us a chance." The coordinated revelation happened on a Tuesday morning. In capital cities around the world, teams of scientists presented the same evidence to their governments. Alien technology, invasion plans, and proof that Earth had 18 months to prepare. The reaction was everything they had feared and hoped for. Initial panic gave way to anger, then determination. For the first time in human history, every nation faced the same existential threat. "It's incredible," Yunsik said, watching news reports from around the world. "They're not fighting about who gets the technology. They're fighting about who can build defenses fastest." The competitive nature that usually divided humanity was now uniting it. Countries that had been enemies for decades were sharing resources and expertise. The race wasn't against each other anymore. It was against time. "Look at this," Yunhai said, showing them reports from research facilities. "They're already improving on Volari designs. That material science lab in Sweden found a way to make the self-repairing metal even stronger. And the defense grid design from Australia is more efficient than the original Volari version," Dongwu added. The AI seemed pleased with these developments. "This is what we hoped for. Human creativity combined with Volari technology. You are creating things neither species could build alone, but the improvements came with a price." The Throkian scouts had definitely noticed Earth's unusual activity. Their communications showed growing concern about the planet's defensive preparations. "They're moving up their timeline," the AI warned. "Invasion fleet, arriving in 14 months instead of 18. You must accelerate preparations." The world responded by working even faster. The old hangar where everything started became a coordination center. Representatives from every nation came to see the alien ship and learn about the technology. 6 months ago I was unemployed, Taeho said to Sojin Park, who had become the official historian of First Contact. "Now I'm coordinating humanity's defense against alien invasion." "History is made by ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances," she replied. "You just happened to buy the right building." As construction began on defensive installations around the world, Taeho often stood in the chamber looking at the Valari ship. The pilot who had died trying to warn Earth would never know if his mission succeeded, but watching humans from dozens of countries working together with technology they barely understood, united against an enemy they had never seen, Taeho thought the Valari scout would be proud. Humanity wasn't just preparing for invasion. They were becoming something new, a species that could adapt alien technology, unite against impossible odds, and refuse to surrender even when facing superior force. The Throkians were about to learn what every human military leader already knew. Humans were most dangerous when they were angry, united, and fighting for their survival. The Throkian fleet arrived 3 months early. Taeho was in the command center that had been built around the alien hangar when the alerts started coming in. Observatories around the world detected massive ships dropping out of hyperspace near Jupiter. The invasion had begun. 17 vessels, reported Commander Sarah Chen from the Orbital Defense Station. Each one is 5 kilometers long. They're not bothering with stealth anymore. "How long until they reach Earth?" asked General Martinez, the UN Defense Coordinator. "At their current speed, 4 days. Taeho looked around the command center. Representatives from 40 nations worked side by side, coordinating humanity's defense. Screens showed the status of defense installations on every continent. It was humanity's first united military effort. "Are our defenses ready?" he asked Yoon-hye, who was now Earth's chief technology officer. "As ready as we can make them in 11 months, she replied. "The orbital platforms are armed with modified Valari weapons. The ground-based shield generators are operational, and we have 300 fighter craft using hybrid human Valari technology. Will it be enough?" Yoon-hye looked at the tactical displays. "Against a normal Throkian invasion force? Maybe. But this fleet is bigger than anything in the Valari records." The AI's voice came through the speakers. Its translation had improved greatly over the months of working with humans. Throkian commanders and confused by Earth preparations. They expected easy conquest. Now they bring overwhelming force. "Let them come," said Hyun-sik, who now led the tactical planning team. "We've learned a few things they don't know about." Over the next 4 days, the world watched as the Throkian fleet approached. Unlike in movies, there were no dramatic speeches or heroes making last-minute sacrifices. Just millions of humans doing their jobs with quiet determination. When the attack began, it was nothing like the Throkians expected. Their standard tactic was to destroy the largest military installations first, causing panic and rapid surrender. But Earth's defenses weren't concentrated in traditional bases. Instead, thousands of small installations were hidden across the planet, connected by quantum communication networks the Throkians couldn't detect. "They're trying to target our command centers," reported the defense coordinator. "But our command structure is distributed. We have backup commanders for our backup commanders." The Throkian ships launched their main assault on what they thought were Earth's primary military facilities. Advanced energy weapons struck empty deserts where holographic projectors had created fake installations. Meanwhile, humanity's real defenses struck back from unexpected locations. Valari-based weapons emerged from mountains, ocean floors, and Arctic ice sheets. The hybrid technology performed better than anyone had hoped. "Direct hit on enemy vessel 7, reported a weapons operator. "Their shields are down 30%. But the Throkians adapted quickly. After the initial confusion, they began systematic bombardment of population centers. Billions of lives were at stake. That's when the humans showed their greatest strength. Instead of panicking or surrendering, they got angry. "All units, this is command," Tejo announced on the global frequency. "They want to scare us into giving up. But humans don't scare easily. Every ship they lose costs them more than they expected. Every day we fight makes this invasion more expensive. Show them what happens when they threaten our home." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Defense installations that had been holding back to conserve energy opened fire at maximum power. Fighter pilots who had been following careful engagement protocols threw out the rulebook and began using tactics so unpredictable that Throkian computers couldn't calculate responses. "The enemy is pulling back from Sector 7, reported a pilot. "I think we confused them by ramming their fighter with our shield generators." "Confirm that tactic worked?" asked the tactical coordinator. "Yes, but I'm not sure how to do it again. I kind of made it up as I went along." That became the pattern of the battle. Humans would try something impossible, succeed through luck and determination, then forget exactly how they did it. The Throkians, who relied on predictable battle patterns, found themselves fighting an enemy that didn't follow any logical strategy. "Enemy. Vessels 9 and 12 are retreating," reported the tracking station. "They appear to be confused by our fighter formations." "What formations are we using?" asked the coordinator. "According to this, Squadron 5 is flying in the shape of their grandmother's flower garden. Squadron 12 is spelling out profanity in an ancient human language." "Are these tactics effective?" "Surprisingly, yes. The enemy can't predict what we'll do because we don't know what we'll do." The battle lasted 6 days. By human standards, it was the most destructive conflict in history. By galactic standards, it was the first time anyone had successfully resisted a Throkian invasion. On the 7th day, something unprecedented happened. The Throkian fleet sent a communication request. "This is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Throkian Dominion." The translation came through speakers around the world. "We wish to discuss terms." The human leadership was stunned. According to Valari records, Throkians never negotiated. They conquered or they left. "What kind of terms?" Tejo asked, speaking for Earth. "Your species fights differently than our projections indicated. Conquest would require additional resources we are not prepared to commit. We propose a withdrawal from your system in exchange for an agreement." "What kind of agreement?" "Your space remains unmarked for Throkian expansion. In return, you do not interfere with our operations in other systems." The command center erupted in discussion. They hadn't won a total victory, but they had achieved something no other species had managed, making the Throkians decide that conquest wasn't worth the cost. "We need to discuss this," Tejo said. The debate lasted 12 hours. Some wanted to continue fighting and drive the Throkians away completely. Others pointed out that Earth's defenses were severely damaged and couldn't withstand another assault. Finally, they reached a decision. "Fleet Commander Zethkar," Tejo announced, "Earth accepts your proposal, but we have conditions of our own." "State them." "First, you provide us with star charts showing the locations of other free worlds that have resisted your expansion. Second, you allow Earth to make contact with these worlds. Third, any Throkian vessel that enters our solar system in the future will be considered an act of war." There was a long pause. "These terms are unusual, but acceptable. Your species is too chaotic to be reliable allies and too dangerous to be worth conquering." The Throkian fleet left 3 days later. As their ships disappeared into hyperspace, every human on Earth realized they had just survived something that should have been impossible. But the story didn't end with the Throkian withdrawal. Within 6 months, Earth had made contact with 17 other worlds that had successfully resisted Throkian conquest. A coalition of free planets began forming, sharing technology and coordinating defenses. Tejo found himself appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the galactic resistance. His small hangar had become a diplomatic center where representatives from dozens of species met to plan their continued freedom. "It's ironic," he said to Sojin, who was now writing the official history of First Contact. I bought that hangar because I needed scrap metal to survive. Now it's the headquarters of an interstellar alliance. The best discoveries are always accidental, she replied. Nobody plans to change history. It just happens when ordinary people refuse to give up. The real surprise came a year later when a new ship arrived at Earth. It was sleek and beautiful, clearly of advanced design. When it landed at the hangar, beings emerged that looked remarkably like the skeleton they had found in the crashed scout ship. "I am Ambassador Thala of the Valari Republic," the lead figure announced. "We have come to thank the humans who honored our scout's final mission." It turned out that the Valari hadn't been completely destroyed by the Throkians. Oh, few colonies had survived in hidden systems, maintaining their civilization while the galaxy thought them extinct. "We monitored your defense against the Throkian fleet," Ambassador Thala explained. "Your tactics were creative beyond our expectations. You used our technology in ways we never imagined possible." "Human creativity," Tejo replied. "We don't always know what we're doing, but we keep trying until something works. This is why we believe your species will be important in the coming conflicts. The Throkians will not forget their defeat here. They will return with more ships and better strategies." "Let them come," said Yunhai. "We'll be ready." And they would be. Earth had become something new in the galaxy. A world that not only resisted conquest but turned that resistance into an opportunity to unite previously divided peoples. The old hangar still stood at the center of it all, a reminder that the most important discoveries often begin with the smallest actions. Tejo's 60-cent purchase had cost him lunch money and given humanity a future among the stars. As he stood in the chamber where it all began, watching diplomats from 40 different worlds plan their mutual defense, Tejo smiled. He was still, an engineer at heart, just working on bigger projects now, building bridges between worlds instead of fixing broken engines. But the principle was the same. When something was broken, you figured out how to make it work better than before.